found it a little odd that the minutes don't come through with any pictures, and I'm a picture person. And if you look at the diagrams and maps on the third one, because I asked for it, on Manchester, the parking ones, that's what we just did, I think.
So sorry, with the receipt of minutes, any questions need to only be with respect to their accuracy. So, but if you have questions, the chair,
Okay.
I'm sure could.
I'll keep it to myself.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so
No
I
point.
will
Doesn't change
put
it.
that. We've got a mover and seconder. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Thank you, Kerry. And Councillor Curran is no. So we'll whip down to the number 7, Ōtākaro-Avon Stormwater Management Plan. Paul, please. And yes, and a couple of others. Fire away.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have a presentation, so I'm here to answer questions.
Fair enough.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, here's Councillor Cotter.
Look, and once again, I can't find it scrolling through, but I'm sure it said in here somewhere that the street sweeping, which came up in the deputation, is not super effective. Is that correct, or what's your view on street sweeping? Because I always thought it was a very good thing to do. The
information we've had from a research was done by NIWA for Nelson City is that it picks up about 20% of metal contaminants off a street. So that's less effective than if the stormwater was put through, say, a basin or a filter. Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's a possible intervention, but it's not it's probably not the best one.
Yeah, but okay, but then the filters obviously are the best way, but then there's a financial barrier to those as well. So can you tell me what our street sweeping program is currently at? Because I don't recall actually seeing many around lately. We're still doing it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The frequencies differ, but I think it'd be fair to say on average, streets get swept between, I think it's possibly weekly in the city centre and every 4 weekly in outer parts, but perhaps 3 weekly might be an average-ish sort of frequency. Okay, thank you. And then, if I may, the other approach that we're not taking is the regulatory one because it's a tough road to go down. But I mean, looking at zinc roofs and copper and things like that. I know we're addressing the copper-free brake pads in another avenue. Why couldn't we start doing that? And would that be through the district plan or building consent, building regulations? I think there are two issues here. Well, the first is that the council doesn't have powers under the Local Government Act to regulate the type of building materials that are used. And the second is that, taking roofing, the most popular and the cheapest roofing is colour steel. People understand it and like it. And and it has worked well for us for probably more than 100 years. In my view, education, the issue we're facing is a long-term one. The health of our rivers has developed as it has over 150 years, and it might take that amount of time to reverse the process. I think we have time to educate, and I think education would lead more effectively to source control than regulation. Ultimately, regulation might be needed, but I think the council would have to take its ratepayers with it if it was going to do something that drastic. Right, so that's a long journey as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the plan. It's very good, and see all the work you put into it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm happy to move this with Councillor Templeton and then Councillor Johansson.
Kia ora, thank you. A couple of questions. Firstly, just actually on that street sweeping. So I thought it was less frequently than that, but just wondering if we could get a memo of some advice on the street sweeping program for the city, which would be good. The study that was done in Nelson, you just talked about the metal contaminants, the 20% of metal contaminants. There's quite a lot of other stuff that comes off the street, so there's a whole pile of dust, sediment, plastic rubbish, those kind of things that come off.
Yes.
But street sweeping is supposed to be effective for those particular contaminants, is that right?
It picks up anything bigger than sand-sized particles quite well, yes.
Yeah, that's it. So there's benefit for doing the street sweeping. It's just that the particular metal contaminants it's not as useful for.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. And are those other things taken into account as part of our stormwater consent?
Yes,
So
they
sediment and things. Yeah.
Yes, they are. So I apologise that my remark about street sweeping was a little misleading. I'm rather focused on metals because they're
Okay.
toxic. Because they're toxic.
Yeah.
But particles are important too.
Okay. So, in that case, do you see benefit in us increasing our street sweeping frequency, especially for areas that we know have a higher amount of, especially, dust and sedimenty kind of stuff and rubbish?
Well, there'd be a benefit and there'd be a cost. I think it would be a great thing as a planner. It'd be great to be resourced to do quite a large study to compare all of the various means of capturing contaminants and the costs and the benefits, the financial implications.
Yeah. I mean, there seems to be quite a lot of that kind of research around already, though.
There's a question.
Yeah. So Mary, can we please get some advice on the street sweeping program as it currently is, and the resources required to increase in the benefits, those kind of things? That would be really useful. That may not be in time for the LTP, but maybe for the annual plan. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I've got some.
I don't think we need street sweeping as part of the resolution.
I think we just get some information. That might be one of the things that
Investigate
comes in there as well.
stormwater quality enhancements.
It's one of those, isn't it?
And
Okay.
the other thing that occurs to me as part of the thing, and I know that, so I talked to Brent about this yesterday, was that normally with plans and things that we develop, whether it's for water, like we've got our sort of 3 waters strategy, those kind of things, we do plans that are ambitious and where we'd like to see the city, and then we allocate budget over time to try and, as it's available to achieve those things. And while I understand that we've got some basic minimums here for the consent, it concerns me that the pre-allocated budget in the LTP is driving the recommendation for the plan instead of councillors setting an ambitious plan for the city for stormwater quality and then allocating budget to achieve it. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I'm the best person to answer that question. Somebody could, either Gavin or Brent.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor, we've had discussions about this, and yes, the discussion in the report talks about a funded level that will achieve compliance with the consent, and if we were to do more or an enhanced level over and above that, yes, it would cost more, but it will take a bit of work to cost those out. And that's why I supported your additional recommendation up there. We say let's do some work to inform the next LTP, so we don't just comply with the consent conditions, but what would it take to go that extra step? And maybe it won't take 150 years to bring things back to the way they should be.
So the street sweeping, though, it's in that street sweepings are the levels of service, isn't it? So
Yes, that would be a level of service change. Yeah, and you include the sump cleaning with that.
Yeah.
Thank
So no, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Johansson, please.
Yeah, thank you. I was just wondering why we don't have a hearing into these stormwater management plans. Like, obviously today's quite a technical document and we've heard some quite specific submissions. Why do we not have a hearing process around these?
This was discussed about 5 years ago, well, it was considered by Dave Adamson, who you'll recall, and he took legal advice from our legal department, and the advice was that the consent is fulfilment of the SMP is fulfilment of a resource consent condition, which is within the delegated authority of the GM.
Good answer.
So it just seems quite tricky for us to hear from deputations today and then make changes as a result of the deputations in the same hour that we've heard them. So maybe something to think about going forward around our engagement and comms satisfaction levels. But if we wanted to do more, and I know in 4.3 it talks about the aspirational, potentially higher achieving plan not being supported by funding provisions, but I know we've put significant budget increase into the LTP, particularly around, I think, Addington and possibly Riccarton. So is there an option that we can go through that is more aspirational and achievable than the current one that's being proposed? And if so, what's the best way to move a resolution to get that considered?
It's been added, item 4 up there, that we will come back in the 2027 LTP. We'll look at options that can achieve higher levels of outcomes. We don't have that available at this time.
Yep.
If we don't want to wait,
That's a good answer.
If we don't want to wait that long, if we want to respond to what the submitters have said today, is there a resolution that we can pass to add?
No, there's not. Because as I said earlier, we're putting stormwater basins around all over the place. One of these areas that is of discussion is down at the Avonside Drive Bickerton Reserve, where this place where there seems to be a lot more rubbish. There is a lot of money going to be spent there one day soon, building another pond, that retention basin that stops that stuff going in. And as I said, ECAN had a bit of an issue on us building ponds and groundwater and things like that. That has been resolved, so it's full steam ahead to get things like this done. So it's now been seconded by Councillor McDonald, and the next question I have on the list is Councillor Coker.
Thank you. I just, with the, because we've got, I said we had two options, the compliance and the aspirational options, but in the resolutions there's actually no choice for that. It's not even mentioned, which I found a bit strange, because I would have thought it said and council chooses the compliance option. So I was wondering why the resolution doesn't actually include that as a choice.
Well, the report explains that that the LTP doesn't fund a more expensive option, and that a lot of the things that you would need to do aren't possible under the current law. So the report to council has to present more than one option, and it tries to explain why the second option it wasn't selected, or isn't viable.
Okay, so that brings me to my next question, which is, there is compliance, aspirational, and as indicated in Sarah's resolution there, a continuum in between, which is sort of what she's aiming at, I think. And there's things that we can achieve and things that we can't achieve. Why are we not thinking about a gradient of more than just compliance and other options? Because I would like, we hear about these every time we get a new plan, and we always get the same information. It feels hopeless, basically.
Brent will be able to answer this, I'm sure.
I mean, ultimately this plan is to deliver on our obligations to comply with our resource consent. So that's the bottom line for us. Otherwise,
I realise that. But
so yes, there will be, but in doing so, and the team are already putting things in place that are different to what we've tried before and are achieving better outcomes. But yes, there is a continuum, and that's why with the additional recommendation that Councillor Templeton put up, I think it gives us the opportunity to review how well our stormwater management plans are going, delivering on our consent obligations, and what more we can do. And then it'll come down to Council's appetite to do more than what is the bare minimum, and where would you like to take it. But that takes quite some time to put that information together.
yeah, it's a shame that that isn't sort of staff initiated previously. But what I wanted to know as well, and I guess this is sort of along with that is, some of Colleen's other points about like impermeable surfaces and rain tanks and making those things easier to achieve. I mean, every single councillor around this table would all support that stuff. So what is it that we can actually do to make some movement on that? Because we never seem to make any movement.
Any person could install those things themselves. I guess you could argue there's perhaps insufficient education about means people could take on their own properties, and that we could do more in that area. However, before the council could regulate for things like rain tanks are being installed on new builds. Before we could regulate for such things as, let's take permeable pavements, we'd need to be sure they work. And the evidence is not very clear that they perform long term. So there are a lot of ideas people have that a council would hesitate to require people to do without being sure they were the best option.
Okay. Will those things be picked up in number 4 with resolution 4?
They should be, yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, one more thing. I just wanted to make an amendment to number 4. It says ahead of the draft long-term plan, but I would like to aim for the annual plan the year prior to that. Not next year's, but the year after.
Moving it to the annual plan.
Well, rather than waiting 3 more years to start doing anything, let's make it 2, because I know next year will probably be hard to achieve, but the year after should be good, so we can actually get some budget. Because it's a big argument about the...
Brent, is it capable of being implemented? Because I know you guys are already all over this anyway and are doing everything that has been asked for anyway.
Yeah, the difficulty, councillor, will be whether there's enough time to get a good handle on the status of whether we're making a difference. We do annual reporting, so that gives you 2 or 3 years. Also, if as a result of it you might want to recommend a change in level of surface, such as for street sweeping or sump cleaning, then you may end up have to do that is normally done through a LTP as opposed to an annual plan. It can be done, but changing levels of service is normally done on that cycle. I just think it's a 3-year period would give us time to do that further research, costing, and do the cost benefits and propose anything. I mean, ultimately, it's a 3-year cycle for the LTP, but we'll be starting on it in 2 years' time anyway.
So could you potentially sort of do a staged approach? So if you came up with something that could be stepped in before that, you would bring it to an annual plan.
Like something like
As a
so
simple
you want
fix.
something comprehensive in time for the next long-term plan, but that is not going to stop you bringing something up to annual plans in between that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Will we happy with that if we just amended into that number 4 rather than doing
Yeah, looking at levels of service.
So it might not be full comprehensive by the annual plan, but we'll bring something back and then it could be brought back again for the long-term plan.
Yeah.
What about annual plan and draft long-term plan?
Why don't we actually put in the word something about a
Why are we
staged approach?
wordsmithing everything when it's already being done?
We know.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to have it in writing because you might not always be here.
We live in hope.
Ahead of the what about ahead of the ahead
He's
of
standing again.
No.
Is he retiring?
So ahead of the draft annual plan, or to a annual plan prior to this, if there's any options.
If there are any achievable options.
That's, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Kewen.
This one goes to Sarah's point about increasing the street sweeping. A question I've been asking for, I believe it's 7 years now, is why does it take 3 trucks to sweep a street? And I'm still waiting on the information why you have 2 pilot vehicles on a road sweeper when it's going the same speed as our rubbish trucks, which don't have pilots, and on the same roads. And so I'm still waiting on that information. So if that could come back, because the savings of not having 3...
Able to do more.
You could do 2-3 times as much sweeping because you'd only have sweeper trucks out. which are very well lit and reflective. So if we can get that information, that
okay.
could be the way to fund it.
Thank you. Councillor Henstock.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is supplementary to questions from Councillor Templeton and Coker. I'm just keen to understand, with respect to the conversation about whether we're street sweeping and whether that's the best thing to do, best bang for our buck at the moment, or whether more research is needed. I'm keen to understand, does the research actually exist, and do we need to analyse it, or do we actually need to be funding research to better understand what the cost-benefit analysis is of the different methods that are available?
There's been quite a lot of research worldwide about street sweeping. A lot of cities are interested in a lot of cities sweep their streets, they have to, and they're interested in how effective it is. It's useful. We haven't done much research in Christchurch, and it's useful to know your local environment. Sweeping streets would pick up grit and contaminants and litter. It would be a good thing to do, and there'd be a cost. The question is about the cost benefit, and that's the thing that we haven't yet got the information to say. Is it better to build a filter or sweep streets? But no doubt sweeping streets would pick up stuff.
Okay, and so you're expecting that with the inclusion of number 4 there, we'll be in a better position to decide where to be putting our investment?
Item 4 enables us, gives us the opportunity to answer that question, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. 2 more, please, and then we'll get moving on. Councillor Donovan.
It's sort of a follow-on from some of the questions that have been asked already, but it's about how we can actually action the plan. And are you able to clarify how much funding's in the long-term plan around sort of some of the work to enable communities to do some of the work that we've heard Avon Ōtākaro Network are doing? So, for instance, we've got the Community Waterways Partnership Fund. We've got the Natural Waterways Fund, which does a lot of work around naturalising those spaces. Can you just speak a bit more about where the funding sits?
Those programs are funded outside of the Stormwater Management Plan. I don't have in my head the amounts involved, but Community Waterways Partnership could be $500,000 a year, could be somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, and the other fund is, I have no knowledge about the amount there.
My understanding is that the one that Hayley was talking about earlier has ended already. So some of the projects are funded to FY27, but we actually don't have any funding on budget for that. Some of the other budgets that you referred to have actually been cut to 100K, so they've actually been reduced. And then there are some other budgets in terms of their consent obligations that have been cut completely. So it'd be good to get some advice on that.
We'll come back with some
thank you.
information about that.
And lastly, Councillor Johansson, please.
Just want to check on 2 very specific things. One is there was submissions around using a more nature-based approach to the mitigation, but I know that we put in quite an expensive stormwater treatment for Bells Creek and Richardson Terrace. Have we ever got a report back on the effectiveness of that type of solution, or in terms of looking at what we're doing going forward, is there going to be an understanding of the cost effectiveness versus the efficiency of mechanical engineering solutions rather than natural?
In respect to Bells Creek, I believe we're still waiting for a final report.
Okay.
There are locations where there's not enough space to put in basins, so we are putting mechanical treatment in.
Is there any resolution we need to do to get progress on that Bells Creek Richardson Terrace one? It's sort of not the first time it's been raised, and it's obviously it was a big investment by council.
I don't think you need a resolution to progress the collection of information and reporting.
Okay. And then the final question from me was around that whole copper brake pads and zinc roofs. Is it true that we've previously been through LG&Z to get advocacy on that?
Yes.
In terms of central government, and what's been the outcome of that advocacy?
The central government has heard the advocacy. The Minister for the Environment has his own timeline for dealing with things, and in his timeline, rural waterways are first, are way up top, because 90% of 97% of the length of waterways in New Zealand are rural, and you'll be aware of rural issues. So MFE has a lot of people in it, like myself and Gavin and Brent, but and they are aware of the issues too, and I understand they've brought them to the minister, but we await the minister's response to that.
Okay, thank you, Annie. Now, Councillor Templeton has told me she has a very short question, which will be followed by an extremely short answer.
It's a request for Mary. Can we please get some clarity over the Community Waterways Partnership funding? Because it's stuff that gives us that community input. They do so much on a volunteer basis to improve our waterways. So, we have some clarity ahead of our long-term plan. It's just where is the funding? Because we wouldn't want that to be completely cut.
No worries.
The other, just Phil, do you want to note up there that or Phil and Sam, that we're going to be getting the information, getting a memo on the street sweeping program? Or is it fine?
I've already emailed out the request.
Yep, thank you. So,
No.
Councillor Sam, I'm happy with it. Are you happy with what you see up there, the change? Yeah, okay. So, dare I ask, is there any debate? Of course, yeah.
You ever take the 3 minutes? Oh, sorry. Look, I just want to thank staff for all the work that's going on here, and let's not lose sight of what council is doing in the stormwater management space. And Councillor Johansson's already mentioned the Bells Creek filter. It's a massive thing. Go down and have a look at it down Ferry Road there, and filtering out a lot of contaminants. And that's the ideal solution in some ways, but to put those all over the city obviously is very cost prohibitive. And so as it quite clearly states here, and this is where the Community Waterways Partnership comes into its own, is getting the communities on board to stop putting the, as I think Hayley quoted, the crap into the water in the first place. I think personally that people have become far more aware of stormwater and where it goes, and particularly the source off our own properties, than they have been in the past. And also the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee's done a heck of a lot of work in this area. I'll draw your attention to their Stormwater Superheroes trailer, which they take around to schools, and it's a fantastic thing. The sides open up and you can actually, the kids can see where the stormwater travels once it leaves their home or once it leaves a park or the street. And it's, getting to the children and getting them to learn about that and be aware. So that's really important. So I agree, the Community Waterways Partnership does need to be resourced as much as that we can. And I would like to see more visibility of what happens in those meetings come through here so that we can see what's happening. But yeah, I think we're doing a pretty good job. It is a long, long game, this one. As Paul said, it's taken a long time to get to this point. It's going to take a long time to clean it up. But I think that we're doing a pretty good job. We'll strive to do better, but as you say, it's got to come from the community and behaviour change. So I'm happy with this today, and particularly number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton. Yeah.
Kia ora, thank you so much. And I know that when staff come and present plans, what they often get is questions and things that might need improving, but there is an acknowledgement that actually this has been a huge amount of work, and it will be improving our quality of water over time, which is fantastic. Our communities do value their water enormously. Water was the most commented on thing as part of the what matters most engagement for the long-term plan. Not just our drinking water, but our waterways as well. So our creeks and streams and rivers, and the way they feed into our estuary and then onto our beaches as well. And people really value that. They take pride in it, and they know that it's currently poor quality and they want to do more. So enabling our communities to do more, supporting them in that work and working with them, both for the water quality intrinsically in itself, but for the biodiversity that surrounds it as well, and that is essential not just for helping the water, but in its own right. So looking forward to the dog bylaw review, Colleen, that's coming up. So we need to look at that as well, and making sure that we do improve our natural environment over time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Scandrett.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you very much for the work on this. We talked about ministers, etc., but the fact of the matter is they're ministries, and I'm really disappointed that we still have copper brake shoes in our country, and there's no reason why we should. They should have been outlawed years ago, as they have been in California and many other places in New Zealand, in the world. And it's also, we have the hangover from the earthquake. EQC used to just hang out a cheque and not check that the work was done, whereas sewage pipes, etc., were cracked and leaking and going into our stormwater, and it is a major problem still today. That we've been assured that they've changed that attitude for the future, and we certainly hope they do, because a lot of people took those cheques and bought a boat and a new car or whatever, rather than fixing the things they should have. So we are moving forward in steps, because it is all about personal responsibility, and I think that through organisations such as Enviro Schools and others, the younger generations are picking this up, and we've seen that as we go through with a lot of climate action with regards to the young ones coming to us and reminding about us older ones about our responsibilities. So I think this is a good way forward, and thank you very much.
Okay, righto. And I'll just throw my two bobs within. One thing I will take my hat off is to, well, the amount of work you've done for one, a lot of years in this, but one thing I will take my hat off is to staff, because just because in years gone by we built a pond or retention pond. Retention ponds are really good for collecting silt, and that's why we've got them over by the hills, but not necessarily building one down in Hagley Park, because there's different systems now as time goes by and life evolves. We get better systems, cheaper systems, and the staff are looking at these all the time, like these nets that catch the contamination that comes in. So I'll be supporting this, obviously, but they've done a fantastic job, so well done. So with that, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. Carried. Right. Mayor Sam. Good.